The Clown in the Mountain Cabin. Once, nestled high in the rugged mountains, there was a decrepit cabin. Locals whispered tales of a deranged clown who had taken refuge there after a circus accident drove him mad. The story intrigued three friends, Mark, Jake, and Lisa, determined to uncover the truth. They set out one autumn weekend, armed with only their curiosity and a sense of adventure. The journey was arduous, the mountain path steep and treacherous. As they climbed higher, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence settled over the forest. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across TH. Mark, the most adventurous of the trio, pushed open the creaky door. The interior was dark, the air thick with dust and decay. Old circus posters adorned the walls, their colors faded, and in the center of the room stood a large, cracked mirror. Mark stepped inside, followed by Jake and Lisa, their footsteps echoing me. "This place gives me the creeps," Lisa whispered, her voice. "Don't worry," Mark replied, trying to sound reassuring. "It's just an old cabin. There's nothing to be afraid of." Jake, always the skeptic, shrugged. "Let's just take a look around and then head back before it gets dark." As they explored, the floorboards creaked under their weight, and a cold draft seeped through the broken windows. In one corner, they found a dusty old trunk. Mark knelt down and pried it open, revealing a collection of tattered costumes and worn-out props. Among them was a clown suit, its colors still surprisingly vibrant. "Looks like our clown story might be true after all," Jake said, examining the suit. Lisa shuddered. "Let's just get out of here. I have a bad feeling about this place." But before they could leave, a chilling laugh echoed through the cabin. They froze, their eyes wide with fear. The laugh came again, louder this time, and the mirror in the center of the room began to fog up, as if someone were breathing on it from the other side. "Who's there?" Mark called out, his voice shaky. The laughter stopped, and for a moment there was only silence. Then a message appeared on the mirror, written in what looked like blood. "Welcome to my home." Panic set in, and the friends bolted for the door, but it slammed shut with a force that shook the entire cabin. They were trapped. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to come alive, shifting and twisting around them. "Mark, what do we do?" Lisa cried, her voice barely audible over her own fear. "We stick together," he replied, trying to sound brave but failing miserably. "There has to be a way out." Jake spotted a small door at the back of the cabin, partially hidden behind a stack of old furniture. "Over there," he shouted, and they made their way toward it. The door led to a narrow staircase, descending into darkness. With no other option, they took a deep breath and started down, their flashlight beams cutting through the gloom. The steps creaked with each step, and the air grew musty and damp. At the bottom, they found themselves in a large, dimly lit basement. The walls were lined with more circus memorabilia, posters, props, and in the center, a large wooden box. It was an old magician's trick box, the kind used for disappearing acts. "Do you think he's down here?" Lisa whispered, clutching Mark's arm. "I don't know," Mark replied, his eyes scanning the room, "but we need to find a way out." As they moved through the basement, the box suddenly creaked open. They turned to see a figure emerging from it, dressed in the same clown suit they had found upstairs. His face was painted in a grotesque smile, but his eyes were wild and full of madness. "Welcome, welcome," the clown said, his voice a twisted mockery of a cheerful greeting. "I've been waiting for some new friends to play with." They backed away, their hearts pounding in terror. The clown stepped closer, his smile widening. "Don't be afraid," he said, his tone shifting to something more sinister. "The fun is just beginning." In a panic, they scattered, each running in a different direction. Mark found himself cornered, the clown advancing on him with a gleam of sadistic pleasure in his eyes. But just as the clown reached him, Mark spotted a heavy metal rod on the floor. He grabbed it and swung with all his might, striking the clown in the head. The clown staggered, then crumpled to the ground, motionless. Mark didn't wait to see if he was truly unconscious. He ran back to the others, who were huddled together in a far corner. "We need to get out of here now," he said, his voice urgent. Together they made their way back up the stairs, the eerie silence pressing in on them once more. They reached the main room of the cabin, and, to their relief, the front door was now open. They didn't hesitate. They ran out into the night, not stopping until they were far away from the cursed place. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, the mountain cabin was a distant silhouette against the dark sky. They knew they had escaped, but the experience had left them shaken to their core. As they made their way back down the mountain, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The whispers of the forest seemed to follow them, and the memory of the clown's sinister smile haunted their thoughts. They vowed never to speak of what had happened, but the nightmare of that night would stay with them forever. The mountain cabin, with its twisted occupant, would remain a dark secret, a place where curiosity had led them into a horror they would never forget. Weeks passed, but the memories of the horrifying night in the mountain cabin continued to haunt Mark, Jake, and Lisa each night. They were plagued by nightmares of the deranged clown and the eerie whispers of the forest. Their once carefree lives were now overshadowed by an uncheckable fear. One evening, as they gathered at Mark's apartment to try to distract themselves, Jake spoke up. "We need to go back." Lisa looked at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? We barely made it out alive." Jake shook his head. "No, listen, I've been doing some research. There are legends about that place, about the clown. They say that the only way to truly escape the curse is to confront it and destroy whatever is keeping it there." Mark nodded slowly. "I've heard the same. We can't keep living like this. We need to face our fears and end this once and for all." Reluctantly, Lisa agreed. The three of them began to prepare for another journey into the mountains, this time armed with knowledge and determination. They gathered supplies, flashlights, weapons, and tools. Most importantly, they brought with them a book of old rituals they had discovered in the town's library, hoping it held the key to their survival. The journey back to the cabin was even more daunting than before. The forest seemed darker, the air heavier with dread. As they approached the decrepit structure, the whispers began again, sending chills down their spines. They stepped inside, the memories of their last visit rushing back. The interior was just as they had left it, but now there was a palpable sense of malevolence in the air. They made their way to the basement, where they had encountered the clown. This time they were prepared. Mark began to read from the ritual book, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Jake and Lisa formed a protective circle around him, their eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. As Mark chanted, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to thicken. The box in the center of the room creaked open once more, and the clown emerged, his eyes filled with rage. "You dare return?" he snarled, his voice a twisted echo of his former greeting. "You will never leave this place alive." But this time the friends stood their ground. Mark's chanting grew louder, the words resonating with an ancient power. The clown advanced, but an invisible barrier seemed to hold him back. Suddenly, the clown let out a piercing scream, his body convulsing as if being torn apart by an unseen force. The walls of the basement shook, and the air filled with a deafening roar. With one final, guttural cry, the clown disintegrated into a cloud of ash, which was quickly sucked into the ground, leaving only silence in its wake. The friends stood in stunned silence, their hearts pounding. The oppressive atmosphere of the cabin began to lift, replaced by an eerie calm. They knew they had done it. They had broken the curse. Exhausted but relieved, they made their way out of the cabin. The forest, once dark and foreboding, now seemed almost peaceful. As they descended the mountain, they felt a weight lifting from their shoulders. When they finally reached the base of the mountain, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon. They looked back at the distant silhouette of the cabin, knowing they had faced their darkest fears and emerged victorious. In the weeks that followed, the nightmares ceased and the whispers faded from their minds. They resumed their lives, forever changed by the experience, but stronger for having faced it together. The mountain cabin, now just a memory, stood as a testament to their courage and determination. And though they would never forget the horror they had faced, they knew they had conquered the darkness, and the mad clown's laughter would never haunt them again.